Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. Today, we're going to have a really good conversation. We've got some great things on the lineup for us to talk about today. And as we get into it, we're going to be talking a little bit, to give you a teaser, we're going to talk about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and really the power or lack thereof that was actually intended for that particular amendments. We're going to be talking about the Second Amendment, that is the right to bear arms. And does it really have the power that we thought it was, based upon what the founding fathers initially thought that they were doing when they were putting together the Bill of Rights and the other things that are now comprise our Constitution? I got in the studio with me, my main man, John B, in the place to be. John, what's good?
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Oh, you changed it up on me. You threw me off there for a second. But everything good. A little cool in the studio, don't you think?
It's chilly. Yeah.
It's chilly. Okay. John, he got some brother blood in him somewhere. We're going to have to invite him to the cookout because John is always cold like I am.
Always.
And I'm usually doing pretty good. But we're also going to bring into the studio via social stream, StreamYard, my co-host Mark Bassett. Mark, what's going on?
Not too much, man. Just staying warm in Sarasota, Florida.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you did hear that. For those of you who are in the Midwest, whether you're in Chicago, the Chicago area, in Joliet, Illinois, is WJOL 1340 AM, shout out, or you're here in the Michigan Bay region, yes, Mark just said he's in Sarasota, Florida, rocking 80 degrees.
80 degrees and sunny. I was out getting sunburned if I'm not careful. I got to put on some suntan lotion.
Mark, there is nothing good about this dude. Why is he here, John?
That's going to sting when people are listening on Sunday after the winter storm comes through. Oh,
yeah, Mark. You're just building people who just love you. Just a trail of folks falling at your feet, loving you for rubbing it in on them. But, Mark, so what's happening down in Sarasota?
I'm actually at a friend's, close friends of ours for about 20 years. One of their sons is getting married here in Sarasota, and so we're down for the wedding.
So it's a joyous occasion.
It is a joyous occasion.
Awesome. That's cool to have you there in the social media stream. Hey, I think I know that lady, Geraldine Bowen Walker. She says, good evening or good afternoon, fellas. Good afternoon to you as well. But let's get into it because there's a lot for us to talk about. I don't know about you guys. I told you guys to pay attention to the Alex Murdaugh trial. Anybody pay attention? Have you guys been paying attention?
A little bit. I haven't been reading all the articles in detail, but I've been following the headlines and reading a bit. And I'd actually seen a 2-hour show on it before. So
okay, awesome. What about you?
I've caught snippets, but that's about it.
Oh my gosh, I have literally. This has been the only thing. I don't watch TV. I'm not a TV watcher. However, I have been glued to court TV. I'm just waiting for the book to come out, to read the book after seeing all of this take place. Because it is really just murder mystery. It is the kind of stuff that you cannot. I guess you can't make up. It's crazy. So those of you listening, Alex Murdaugh, they're actually in getting ready to turn the trial over. They were doing closing arguments from the defense or from the prosecuting team. Then they'll have the defense do their part, and they'll come back with their recross or whatever you call that last piece. And then they'll turn it over to the jury. So Alex, it's crazy because he has been stealing money from friends and family and all of this other stuff. He says that he has this addiction to opioids, which if he does, it is what it is. But he was spending Dave Freebie, he says he's guilty in my opinion. Dave, that's what I'm wondering. Dave, I want to know, have you been following this case? Because America is glued to the TV. This is the kind of stuff that really keeps you tuned into this stuff. But it started off, he had been doing all of this nefarious stuff, just underhanded stuff, stealing from people who are getting settlements and stealing from the law firm. Go ahead.
Now, is this alleged or was
he's guilty?
He's pretty much admitted that.
Yeah, he's a fried chicken when it comes to that. All right, cooked all the way through. So yeah, we're not saying alleged. We're throwing that one out there. So he's, I feel bad. I've taken my hits on this. or whatever. And so now everyone knows he's a crook and a thief because he's been lying to people in their face, stealing from people who have lost loved ones. It's just ridiculous. He's not really the kind of American that anybody would want to be with. Dave, thanks for responding. It is like a crazy book that turned into a real life. Can't make this stuff. Dave, you are my guy because I am thinking the exact same thing. So all of this happens and he's about to get away with it, right? Because he has some time frame, the end of the year coming. I guess they get paid on these lawsuits. Things change. They're now not going to get the money that they thought that they were going to get from the lawsuits. And a boating accident happens. This young woman is killed. His son is the person that they're deeming responsible for this. Doesn't this sound like I'm reading like a Sydney show?
Yeah, the evidence was pretty strong. I mean, his son was horribly drunk and
drunk like a skunk, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so they go on through this thing. This trial then ensues. The pieces start. He's trying to convince allegedly individuals that, hey, what did you see? Did you see me? He's walking around allegedly with this. Well, it's real because they showed us a picture of it, so I can say that he actually did it. He's going into the hospital where the victims are with his badge affixed like he's some law enforcement officer. What are you going to say, Jonathan?
I was just going to say that I'm just trying to figure out what is being sorted out in this trial.
Well, this trial is.
Oh, we got to get there, but that's what makes it so good because dude doesn't just okay, I'm taking stick a fork in me, I'm done. He continually he is the perfect suspect where he just continually he can't just throw in the towel. That's when you know that there's some real issues allegedly. But anyways, he goes through. He has all of these issues take place, and then what happens is he couldn't get out of it. Like all of his walls were closing in. Everyone knows now that he stole money. His friends, his law firm, everyone is now PO'd to the nth degree with this guy. And then he tries to wiggle his way out of it. He comes up with this bird brain excuse, allegedly. Why don't we stage this issue? Someone tried to kill me on the side of the road. And gets shot or doesn't get shot or whatever happens.
Flesh wound.
Yeah, flesh. Yeah, just enough to draw some blood so we can allegedly continue this story, right? And it just goes on and on and on from there to eventually, there's $10 million insurance that's out there somewhere. And so what happens is they come up with I guess he just says, the only way I'm going to get this insurance, I wanted Paul to get the insurance. I miss Paul. I'm like, you haven't Paul? Who the heck is Paul? So Paul, I guess, is his son's name. But anyways, so he goes through this thing. His wife and his son end up dead. And then when you see the details and how he's there, he lies his whereabouts. I wasn't there. I went to visit my mom. There's like a 9-minute window for this person to come in, find out where the family weapons are, use the family weapons against the family members where he knew exactly where they'd be and get back out, ditch the phone on the same route that he's coming. It's just crazy. It is crazy. And so I have been glued at the TV, but I'm going to tell you, and Dave, you let me know, and Mark, I'm curious as to what you guys that have been watching a little bit of this are thinking. I'm thinking this dude may get off because there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that's there. I mean, dude,
people get convicted on circumstantial evidence all the time. I watch.
Well, Mark, but I'm going to tell you this.
I think the last thing you said to me is the most damning, which is, he lied all along of whether he was there or not. And then they found video on his son's phone, basically him talking to the wife with the son in the background, literally minutes before they're killed.
Absolutely.
And so at some point you go it's beyond a reasonable doubt the probability that it's somebody else is just infinitesimally small.
Okay.
And given everything else, I think this guy's going down.
So. Okay. That's my hope, but go ahead.
Well, the one of the snippets that I heard, one of the more recent ones, was from those closing arguments from the prosecution.
Yeah.
No one else has the means, motive, or opportunity. And now the prosecution obviously has to say that, but from what I've heard, which has mostly been from you at this point, it sounds pretty solid to me. Those are the three things you kind of have to prove.
No, but there's just things out there that are not ironclad. For instance, they really can't tell you, when you have an expert saying, well, we can't really tell you who died, if the person was 6'6" or the person was 5'2", just all of those things, anything that leads to any type of doubt, because you can be a liar, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a murderer. I know a ton of people who lie so much I just can't stand to be around them, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they were murderers. And so one does not make you guilty of the other. Um, oh, this is Odell Walker watching from Mississippi. Thanks for tuning in all the way from Mississippi. I guess we're getting some good old country ratings at this time. We certainly thank you for tuning in. No, I'm just joking. I love you guys. But anyways, I'm just curious. Dave, you never responded to me. I guess you gave up on us and you threw in the towel. What are you thinking? But they're listening to, they're polling people, and people are saying, a number of people are saying that they think it might be a hung jury. So if you're seeing what I saw, I'm saying, is there a space for doubt? Yes, but do I think this dude is guilty? Absolutely. He'd be guilty before he came into the court.
I mean, it's reasonable doubt, and it just doesn't seem reasonable to me that there's another answer here. So.
Well, I think that this attorney is not really. This prosecuting attorney is leaving things to be desired. I'm like, when he said to him, yeah, there's a lot that I agree with, but then there's a lot that I don't agree with. My thought was, what don't you agree with? He never asked the question.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're leaving so many stones unturned, but that is what it is. We're going to get to the next story because, I can talk about this all day long. My favorite writer was John Patterson. And this falls right into the line of the things that he would write. If you guys are looking for a good book to read, there is a book. Well, I love the Alex Cross series, but there's a book that was written a long time ago by Patterson called Blood Diamond. Amazing book. Did you read it?
I did not. I thought you were trying to segue into the next point on the run of show that you gave us.
No, I was not. But since we're talking books, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit because my favorite guy, Ron DeSantis, has written a book today. What is it? To Be Free is the title of the book. And we know that people have been hinting that he's going to run for the presidential bid. This is kind of a move that many hopefuls do. They write a book, to keep them relevant, which gives them more time. And it makes more people ask the question, when they sit down for interviews about the book. So can we get the inside scoop? Are you going to run for office? So what's the deal? Is he going to run for office or what? And secondly, the next question is, Mark, when are you getting your copy of his book to be free?
I do think he'll run for office, and I will not get his book. I'm not a reader to begin with, really.
Mark, you can't tell people that he who reads leads.
But I am not a big fan of Ron DeSantis. I really have no interest in reading what he has to say.
Well, I think it's funny. I always say he who reads leads, and he's in Sarasota, Florida in 80-degree temperatures, and I'm here in Michigan. Who's reading out here, right? But so with everything that has been going on, and this is really a political question, and I know neither of you guys are that, but we play it on the radio, right? When we look at DeSantis and we look at what he's doing with Florida, okay, there's a certain base that he's appealing to.
Yep.
But he's really ticking off half the country with some of the things that he does. Do you think the policies and some of the things that he's been doing, as well as his Say No to Woke or whatever campaign that he's been doing, does that serve him well when you look at a national campaign like an election for
I don't
president?
know. It seemed to serve Donald Trump well the first time. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I think, again, he's taking the easy way out. And this is why I don't like the state of current politics. I think real leaders created an environment where you're trying to speak about something aspirational and how to bring people together to do something better. And
yes, we can.
And everybody, most of these politicians are basically dividing. So this is, his rhetoric is all divisive.
I would agree. What are you thinking?
I think when it comes to his policies, I've said it before, I think that they get strawmanned into oblivion. This is actually what he's saying when that's not at all what he's saying. But I think he's kind of leaned into it and like, okay, yeah, be mad at me, because he sees that when he sees the left get mad at him, he sees his own base rally around him. I think that it would serve him on a national level if Trump weren't in the equation. I think the fact that the two of them kind of butt heads all the time and their followers and supporters go after each other to a certain degree, I think that is going to make the divisive language not serve him.
Do you think that the base, the Trump base, the MAGA base is the same as, I'm going to call it the Trump base. Do you think the Trump base is the same base as the DeSantis base when we talk about the issues that DeSantis has really been pushing in Florida?
I think there's a huge overlap.
Okay.
I think they're not identical, but there's a huge overlap.
I think there's an overlap. It's just a difference of who are they clinging to? You know, whose face is on their flag.
Yeah.
It's the only difference, really.
And I think the people that are shifting to DeSantis have begun to realize that I think Trump's, in essence, his time has passed. And so, they feel like, okay, DeSantis has a lot of very similar views. He's got a better chance. Let's shift to DeSantis.
I would agree with that.
So what's going on with Nikki Haley? Is the Republican Party just like, she's a woman, we're not ready for that? What's the deal with Nikki Haley? Because she's there, she has some credentials, but like she made her announcement, was like, oh, Nikki Haley's gonna run. Okay, is DeSantis gonna run?
Yeah. I liked her when she was press secretary, I think, right? Yeah. I really liked the stuff how she represented herself and the office of the president.
I think she's got too much sense to win.
I have an issue with anyone that worked for Donald Trump. You have a choice to work for the guy, or you don't have to work for the guy.
Well, but this is the thing.
If you choose to work for Donald Trump, to me, that's an indictment on you.
Well, it's an indictment on someone else who's in our social media stream who also voted for Donald Trump the first time around.
I didn't say voting. I said actually working for it.
Well, but this is the thing, though: a vote and working. Nobody really knew what kind of an idiot that he was going to fully become. Well, I guess through the.
Yes, you did.
You still voted for him, Mark. I mean, let's own it.
That?
I said you voted for him, didn't you?
I didn't.
Not the first time?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I voted for an independent the first time. I threw away my vote the first time.
But for the rest of you that are out there that are saying that you're no longer a supporter, I just want to say, and you guys are down in Nikki Haley. I say that like this: when Donald first came out and said that he was going to be he was going to run for president, even with the Central Park 5 situation going on and some of the other things that have happened, I was like, you know what? Maybe what we need is somebody who's never been here before, just somebody completely. And I wasn't opposed. And he was saying some things, as it related to the border and issues. I was like, dude, it's not so bad. It wasn't until the grab them by, the female genitalia and things that began to happen after that, I was like, there's no way that this guy can represent us on a world stage.
Yeah, and for me, it was just the debates. Anybody that walks around and uses, derogatory nicknames for people, in a presidential debate, has no business being the president of the United States.
Go ahead.
Here's an interesting question. If another individual who was a little bit more respectful, maybe, had Trump's policies, how successful do you think they would be?
Much better.
I don't think that they would get in office to enact those policies.
I think they would have won the second
true.
election, actually. I think the reason Trump lost the second time was more Republicans like me who actually, either voted for him the first time because they liked his policies. I think he lost because he lost a good chunk of the center Republicans.
His personality. Yeah. I think his personality is the thing that
policies were like carbon copies, standard Republican policies, frankly. There was nothing special about his policies. It was all about
drain the swamp. We got more crocodiles and alligators swimming around here than I've ever seen in my life.
I think there was a perception that he'd actually follow through with them, and he did to a certain degree.
Hey, people are in the stream right now that will tell you, I think Donald was, Mr. President, was the biggest, because I want to respect the office. I think our president was one of the biggest idiots I've ever seen in my life. That's kind of how I feel personally about him. But what I love about him, I have this, it's a two-edged sword, Mark, because there's a part of him that I actually love and I can respect. Everything that he says that he's going to do, he does it. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to do it. I told you.
You don't have to do that in that fact. There's a lot of people that say what they're going to do. They don't have to belittle people, divide people.
Those are the things I don't like. But I do like the fact that at the end of the day, what he said he was going to do, he did. All right, so Mayor Lightfoot.
Really? Let's not get into the debate, but I would go, did he really?
Anyway, no, Mark, come on. You're a Republican. Stand up for something Republican. He's a little bit Republican at least. But anyways, the Chicago mayor, Mayor Lightfoot, is out. She lost her election bid. She will not be in the runoff. What do you guys think about this? I think the main issue was crime. Crime
and education.
Talk about crime, or you make a point about crime. Who do you talk about? Chicago.
Yeah.
So what do you
crime and education in general? I mean, a lot of these cities like this, I mean, even fairly liberal people are getting tired of the situation in some of these big cities.
I'm mad that we wasted our first black female mayor of a major city on this one. The city of Chicago, at least. We could have retracted and did something over.
Let's get Mayor Moore in there.
Keisha Lance Bottom in Atlanta was phenomenal, but I don't know this. Good luck, Miss Lightfoot, because when she came, she was not only the first African American mayor of Chicago, female mayor of Chicago, but she was also the first openly gay woman to serve, a gay person probably, as mayor in Chicago. She just always seemed to be like one foot in the grave and one foot in life. Like, I wanted her to get like a makeover or something. Not because she's a woman and I wanted her to be pretty. I just wanted her to look alive. Like, come on, and I think that's what happened with the crime in Chicago. She was trying to be alive, and everything else was just kind of flying by her. And it's like, am I alive enough to stop the gun violence? Am I alive enough to do it? It's just sad, that your city would have crime going through the roof. And so I applaud the city of Chicago by doing something different. Those of you in Joliet, take a note. If your politicians aren't serving you well and you're the crime capital of the world, it's time to make some changes. John, you just smiled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you first started this and you said, who do you talk about when you talk about crime? Chicago, crime. No offense to our listeners in Chicago.
If you're in Chicago or if you're in Joliet and surrounding areas, no offense. But this is why you guys have made the change that you have.
Yeah.
Because you guys have become a laughing stock to the nation and an example of what happens when handguns hit the street, what happens when crime. And so it's not that, no, it's real bad. So there needed to be a change. And I'm glad that you guys saw the change. I hope other cities across, it ain't just about being the only black person, which I love seeing folks of color in places. But if you're not managing the major issues and people aren't safe in your community, that is numero uno. All right, we're going to continue moving forward. Southern California, we're going to look at the last couple of seconds. Mark, I really wish you were in Southern California, like on business right now. I would be so happy right now.
Well, I think normally I would be like in San Diego or in LA or somewhere in between, and it's not snowing there, but yeah, I've got a son in LA who's flying in here tomorrow, so I'll have to ask him how it's going there.
Well, I mean, they're under inches and they're supposed to get 10 more inches, at least 5 to 10 more inches of snow this weekend
up in the mountains. It was actually, they were getting snowfall at the level of the Hollywood sign, supposedly.
Well, I saw pictures of the ocean, the beachfront covered in snow.
That must have been in Northern California. It had to have been.
It's San Francisco. Snow is not foreign there.
Yeah.
But when they're saying it's snowing in Southern California, I'm freaking out. That like, what is going on?
Yeah. Mark, now they've got pretty high mountains in Southern California, so it's not uncommon for them to get snow in the mountains of Southern California. But
okay,
this is crazy. This is obviously crazy, and in a sense, I mean, they're refilling the reservoirs. I've seen some crazy pictures of how quickly they're refilling the reservoirs.
Well, they needed some water, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes, they did.
They were going to get. But if you've ever been in California, if it rains too hard, like schools, stores, everything shuts down because of the rain, and they're not equipped, and mudslides. What happens when you get all of this snow? Does the world just end? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more United Shades of Gray, conversations of race in America.
You're listening to United Shades of Grey on WSGW.
This is Kareem, and you've tuned in to United Shades of Grey, Conversations of Race in America. We are here today with the guys, as fellas, as we were termed at the beginning of the program. What's up, fellas?
Not too much, man. Taking it easy.
Does that work for y'all? I feel like, yo, what's up, fellas?
Hey,
Sure.
No. Come on, John. Did you see how white John made us sound?
That's what I think.
What's up, fellas? No, it's like this. Yo, what's up, fellas?
Boys, what's going on, boys?
Yo, what's up, fellas?
Yeah.
You know, that's you got to get a little swag to it.
Yeah.
You got it. Sounds like,
He's a Lutheran farm boy from.
Look, I'm Lutheran from Standards. I ain't getting involved in that. Okay, so you know what I love about you guys, and I want to say this before we get into our conversation, and Mark starts believing that the world is full of flowers again. What I love about having these conversations, and we sometimes on this show talk about having courageous conversations and talking about racing, creating environments and spaces to have those conversations. But what I love is that there are very few times when you can feel comfortable bringing your whole self into a space and talk, not just that we're talking to each other. There are people that listen, but it is a breath of fresh air to be able to have the conversations that we have, which are sometimes risque, especially with the things that we say, and you know. But to be able to be free enough to have those conversations and to make the jokes and understand that there's nothing meant by it, and to kind of be free to kind of be fully yourselves. I don't know if you guys appreciate that about this space, but I certainly do.
I do. It comes, I think, trust. You know, that's how, trust enables that to happen, I think. So,
and that's kind of the point of the show, is to show that it's possible, and this is how it kind of has to be sometimes.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, that is the point of the show. All right, guys. It's what good is life if you can't laugh sometimes, right? Mayor Lightfoot or former Mayor Lightfoot, laugh a little bit.
I think we're in a day and age where people take things way too seriously at times. So. Thank
you so much. Cherise Steele Phillips says that it's perfectly balanced. For some reason, when I said perfectly balanced, I thought magically delicious. Which, for those of you, I know y'all just thought I was black, those that are listening, but I'm actually a black Irishman. I found out something over. No, my dad is McLaughlin is my dad's his actual name. I took my mom's name, and so he for my entire all my adult life, I thought he told us that we were black Irishmen. So shiver me timbers, my friends.
Celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's coming up.
Is that a pirate?
Not so much. Not so much. Not drinking green beer and all of that crazy stuff.
All right.
But I did find out something yesterday. So I'm in the process. This is so funny. If my family was not so politically incorrect, I would read some of the comments that they put in the family stream, but I won't throw them. All right. So yesterday, I was doing some research, and I've been working on putting together a family tree. And it's something that I've been wanting to do ever since my cousin was on Finding Our Roots with Henry Louis Gates. And so she did kind of the arm where my great grandmother kind of went, and that's kind of how we found out the Georgetown story. My mom's being like, "Oh Lord, help us." But yesterday, as I was continuing my process, I got to my grandmother's great grandfather. Okay, so this would be my third great grandfather.
Yep.
Okay, so I get to him, and and as I look, and I'm looking at my grandmother was when she was born. She was considered 1925. I'm like, that's a long time ago. She was mulatto, mulatto, right?
Yeah.
And then I go to my grandmother.
Do people use that term still?
Dude, it was on the U.S. Census. That's where I'm getting this information from. Okay. So, 1925, no, they don't use mulatto anymore. That kind of died out with the late 60s, I guess, when we became Negroes. Because after my grandmother, my mom is putting 1924. Actually, there's a 1924 asterisk 25 date, because even the U.S. Census, my grandmother didn't really know when she was born. And according to the U.S. Census of 1950, they put a 1924, 1950, 25 asterisk date. They weren't sure exactly which date. But anyway, story is, so we're looking at this, and so she was considered a mulatto as well. And then she married a man who was a what they call him. He was black. He was black. My grandfather was black, but her children were all now Negroes. So it was, they were Negroes and they were black. So it's interesting to see the transition. But my grandmother's father was mulatto. So I'm like, okay, I guess he's biracial. But my grandmother's great grandfather, mulatto. Okay, I see you, mister. And then we go on and we get all the way up to her great grandfather, her great great grandfather. And all of a sudden he's white. So I had to like come back down the tree. Like, wait a minute.
You're more white than black, Kareem.
No, hey, I'm a soul man. But anyways, no, but no. So I look at it and I'm coming back down. I'm like, oh my goodness. I didn't think it was that close, Mark. But my great 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 grandfather was a white man. And he had a farm, because of course the black folks, according to the US Census, we were farmers. So they were farmers for their profession. And he also was a grave digger that moved from Virginia down to what is called Conch, Alabama, but we refer to it as it's Evergreen Conch, Alabama. So it was an interesting story to find out. So I shared that tidbit of information. Hey, your great great grandfather to my uncle, your great great grandfather that owned slaves. He was a plantation owner. Well, they were sitting there like, oh my gosh, we're white. And one of my says, I'm gonna die wear it long down. But it was just an interesting thing. Race in America is a very interesting story. So we're gonna transition because that's not what we're talking about. I just thought, hey, since this happened, why not share it with you guys, amen? All right, so there's more interesting facts that are coming because we're getting ready to do some DNA tracing and other things. So we'll share those stories with you guys as well. Thank you, Donna. She says, too funny out there. All right. So
out of curiosity, what % Caucasian are you?
Look at these beautiful dark tones, Mark. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I keep hearing that a relative is half white all the time. And so I'm just curious.
I don't know who they are because I sure didn't get the color. I didn't get the eyes.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Yeah.
Thank you. What is that? 100th, 10th, hundredths, thousandths,
10,000.
10,000. I'm 1/10,000th of white. Okay, but we're not surprised. My grandmother, we're surprised because we actually thought that we were half Native American. Was with my grandmother. I'm a collier. My grandfather is white and my grandmother is mulatto. My husband's mom is mulatto. That term is just funny to me.
I still use it. I didn't know it was on the outs. So.
No, Mark, I'm so glad we're friends so I can help you. No, don't use the term mulatto.
Okay.
Right. They're either a mixed race or they're biracial. Those are the PC terms.
It's interesting to me how terms kind of come and go. About a decade ago, I was in Brazil and I said, hey, this black guy, and you would have thought like I just made the hugest blunder. And in Brazil, black is like using the N word here in the United States, and they use Negro, which again, obviously in the U.S. you don't go around saying Negro anymore. So
negra,
yeah.
I mean, but it's black. I mean, so the thing now is really just to ask people. I'd be interested in hearing what your DNA showed. I'm a collier, one of our listeners. The thing now is you just ask people how they want to be referred to. You know, I think you asked me, do you use the term black or African American? Since I've never been to Africa and I'm probably more American, I am an American of African descent. I'm a black man. Okay. So that's kind of how we do it here. But other people have different thoughts and you know, as to who they are. But we're going to get, I want to talk. We got 15 minutes here. I want to talk about the Second Amendment. As we talk about the Second Amendment as we know it, what is it that you understand the Second Amendment to say, Jonathan?
Me.
Just as we know it, just, you know, the average American.
What's the average perception of it? Well, I think there are a couple perceptions of it. I think the one perception is focuses on the militia aspect of the terminology in it, which is, well, no, that means that the army can have weapons. Whereas there's the other definition, which I subscribe to a little bit more closely, which is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, is the active language in the amendment itself. Now, in what you've kind of put before us here, it does make me realize that the Bill of Rights limits the federal government. It does not necessarily limit the state government, which I think is kind of where you're going with this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I appreciate you sharing that, Jonathan. Everyone knows in here, Mark, you're not a gun person, right?
No, but as I've told you before, I have two sons that are huge. I mean, huge gun people. Like,
But they're military though as well, right?
What's that? Yeah, I have a son who's a major in the Army, and my youngest son who's studying to be a gunsmith will only move and live in certain states depending on those states' guns laws.
Really?
Yeah, because he has a huge, fairly large collection, which he said, like in California,
becomes illegal.
All illegal. Most of his gun collection would be illegal.
Well, I mean, Arizona's a great state for him to go. We should go there and shoot all the illegal guns we want to shoot. But
and it impacts the laws impact gunsmiths as well. It restricts what they're able to do.
So I mean, but okay, Mark's not a gun person. Jonathan, where are you? I don't know if I've ever asked you that really.
I feel comfortable around guns. I don't have a massive collection or anything, but I have a positive opinion of guns.
Okay.
And
what is your positive? How do you have a positive opinion of guns? What's a positive opinion?
I think that people should carry them.
Okay.
That's my positive opinion.
So you think people should carry them for the purpose of
self-defense.
Okay.
I think that the standard every family home that wants one. I'm not saying it should be required. I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Everybody's got a military at home.
I think that 2 handguns, an AR-15, and a shotgun is a good standard for a house.
So wow,
family
got a well-armed house, man.
2 handguns, an AR-15.
Yes.
Is this for in case, like in Hunt for Red October, they start coming out the
Red Dawn? That's Red
Dawn. Yeah, they start coming out here. I mean, what's the purpose for an AR-15 for a family?
Because rifles are considerably easier to control and use in a controlled setting. Home defense, whatever the situation.
So in a home defense situation, you want to have a rifle instead of any other hand. And
way more accurate.
They're considerably
they are.
More accurate.
I mean, I would think
myself I'm not a good shot, but I am a much better shot with a rifle than I am with a handgun, and the chance of collateral damage in terms of me shooting the wrong place goes down if I use a rifle.
Well, my choice was not the question that I wanted to ask anyway. I was just curious why an AR-15, because I really don't think that,
because it is versatile, it is fairly easy to maintain, and it is accessible.
Okay. Hey, it is what you want. I think that I'm not opposed to AR-15s. I just think like that's okay. I think rifles, is what we grew up with as kids. Always practicing with, and we learn to shoot with rifles. And so I'm not opposed to that whatsoever. I'm just curious. I'm asking questions. As long as we don't have bump stocks and putting stuff like that on them, I'm not opposed to them. But I like your family package, your family safety kit, 2 handguns, an AR-15, and what else?
And a shotgun.
And a shotgun.
If you want to go hunting, get a hunting
rifle.
rifle.
You may want to shoot some pheasants or something sometime.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Kids don't even know how to spell outdoors, let alone go out there anymore.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's a gone art. But okay, so I'll tell you, probably unlike many people, when people think about Black people, they think about the people that want to end guns and arms, and that's not me. I grew up as a young kid shooting. There were woods in the back of my grandparents' house. We would set up cans. We learned to shoot with cans on the wood pile fence or whatever. And then we start doing hunting, rabbits and raccoons, stuff like just little stuff that we were squirrels, just having fun as kids. And so I wouldn't say that I'm a gun advocate, but I would say that I am someone who enjoys my guns. And so I have a number of guns. I'm not going to say what they are, just in case something happens and you're like, yeah, you said on the radio that you got these weapons. But no, I'm just joking. But I'm not opposed to them. My family uses them. We have fun with them. And we've joked about them here online. But I was looking, I do believe in common sense gun law and legislation. But I got into a conversation because we were on the air one day, and there was an attorney who sent me a message. I was like, "Hey, oh, Mr. Gun Rights Advocate." I was like, "Yes, sir." He was like, "Yeah, what if I told you that the Second Amendment didn't really say what the Second Amendment said? People keep saying, well, the Second Amendment gives us this right. The Second Amendment tells us the Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, let me hear your thoughts." And so I thought that we would bring it, and the attorney was not anti-guns. As a matter of fact, they just had small kids, so they didn't keep them in the house. I think it's probably the opposite mentality, that I would lock them up and have a small gun, a gun, if you have to protect your family. But that is what it is. Everybody in the world has a gun right now, so in order to feel safe, I think you almost have to have a gun. I think that's where you're coming from, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in a grocery store. People have guns. You see people walking around, and it's very different in Michigan than when you go to states like Texas, and everybody is open carrying. I mean, so you got to plan
I've
out.
seen it a few times in Michigan, and it just freaks me out when some old dude, is walking around with a holstered gun, at the antique fair. It's just like, what the what? So
That was less scary than when they were protesting at the Capitol. And I was in Lansing, and we would see people walking around with, machine, all kinds of crazy stuff.
that was yes, that was crazy to me. That's
So it's a
just
little
scary.
different.
Yeah, scary.
So there's a case. It's called the United States versus Cruikshank. Is that how you pronounce it? Cruikshank.
Cruikshank.
I bet
Cruikshank.
Cruikshank.
Yep.
All right. That we just want to have a conversation with it. I'm going to read a little bit about this, and then we're just going to talk about this for those of you who have never heard of this, and I didn't, because I don't sit around and look for law cases. But so I depend on my law friends to do this. But it says United States versus Cruikshank. This is 1876, was a major decision of the United States Supreme Court, ruling that the U.S. Bill of Rights did not limit the power of private actors or state governments, despite the adoption of the 14th, really 15th, 16th, 17th, however amendments. It reversed the federal crime convictions of these individuals for the civil rights violations committed in an aid of anti-Reconstruction murders. Decided during the Reconstruction era, the case represented a major defeat for federal efforts to protect the civil rights of African Americans. Now, excuse me, that was good. I swallowed the wrong way. For those of you who are out there, this case was argued and put before people, and the blacks were saying, "Hey, we have the right to assemble, the right to bear arms." This all came about. There was a gubernatorial election. I think it was Alabama. Am I correct?
You're the one that brought this to the
no,
table.
I believe it's Alabama. If I'm not correct, it was a gubernatorial election in Alabama, Louisiana. Louisiana, I knew it was one of those states. They're all the same. Everything south of Michigan to me is all the South. Ohio, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Missouri is all the same. But anyways, there was a gubernatorial election in 1872, and what was happening is there was a grouping of individuals that were there, and they were aware that there was some threats to public safety as it related to them being able to vote. No guns here in Cuenca, Ecuador. No guns here in Cuenca, Ecuador. I don't know who you are, Kathy Corbin Lauer, but bienvenidos. But anyways, this conversation. So what happens is, in order to protect these men and the individuals, they sent down weaponry for them to protect themselves against the onslaught of groups that were going to harm them as they began to prepare to vote. Well, situation would have it is they found out that the guns and ammunition and things were in this particular meeting place, and they basically ambushed them and killed, all of the black men that were in there. I think there were 3 white guys that were in there as well. Dozens of blacks and 3 white guys were killed. Federal charges were brought against the several whites using enforcement of 1817 Act, prohibited 2 or more people from conspiring to deprive anyone of their constitutional rights. Charges including hindering the freedoms, like I told you, the right to assemble, the right to bear arms. And so that was the thing. So they were saying, hey, we're going to stand on the fact that we have this Second Amendment right and this First Amendment right, and both of them were violated. And neither, the court came back and reversed the charges or the decision against them that they were found guilty of. And so the stating was, which what you were saying, Jonathan, is that the federal government doesn't have the ability to change or to take away the rights of basically an individual or a state. And so that would give us the understanding that if you bear arms or have a gun, it is because it is like your natural right as a person who's alive and a part of the government that you can protect yourself. So the Supreme Court basically lets us know in that decision that the right to bear arms with the Second Amendment is not necessarily the right to bear arms. What are your thoughts?
Then why does the ATF exist?
Well, there is a change because as we look at how this has evolved, because there's been several cases.
Yeah.
And it was really until I think a case in 2008 that took place that the Supreme Court actually reverted and said the Second Amendment actually says that you have the right to bear arms. So it wasn't until 2008 that we actually got that understanding, right? But we have been saying forever that every American has the right to bear arms because of the Second Amendment. And up until that point, it had never said that before. So if the Supreme Court, so what it says to me is that either the Supreme Court does have the right to enact and to put press upon state governments and individuals that right, or in 2008, the only people that they couldn't regulate were militia.
Well, I think what it says to me is basically any law is not totally black and white. There's shades of gray and open to interpretation. So to me, what it really says is like at different points in times, the Supreme Court has interpreted that amendment differently.
Now, let me ask this question, since we are talking about conversations of race. Do we believe in that opinion of 1876 that a part of that conversation may have been tainted by the fact that the majority of the individuals that were murdered were black men during a time when they were fighting Reconstruction? Does that?
I think there's a reasonable chance. There's a reasonable chance that could be the case. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't understand why they weren't just being tried for murder. Yeah, why wasn't that the offense versus unlawful assembly and why? I mean, it's just straight murder.
Yeah, I mean, come on, this is 1876, and we're talking about bringing in Reconstruction was fairly new. The idea that a black man or a white man could stand trial for murder against the black, we're trying to make them citizens still.
Yeah, I mean, there was three white guys in that building as well, is what I thought I heard you say. But anyway,
yeah,
your point is well taken. It was a different time and place and different standards, and coming out of slavery, and it just seems kind of.
There's a conversation that I think that continually comes up, and I think, go ahead, John.
We're running out of time, but I think that an interesting distinction to be made here. I'm reading I've got the Bill of Rights pulled up here. Now, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay.
So they can't stop militias.
The First Amendment, which has to do with assembly, says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, blah, 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 to abridge the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble. That one restricts specifically Congress. That's the
fight.
That's interesting.
From 1876. It is very interesting to me. And I think that if you understand or you listen to we actually start reading these things, they become interesting conversations. I'm going to get I would like to see a couple of legalese who see this thing differently.
Yeah, ultimately you need people on both sides of it, because again, all of these things are, frankly, any document is open to interpretation.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. I mean, but that's what the law is. And so our attorneys and our lawyers and our judges, we got to make sure that we understand who we're putting in office, because interpretation of the law really has a major impact on how we live in these United States of America. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. An hour goes by so fast. God bless you all. Grace and peace.